Hello and welcome back to my humble show. Have I got a show for you? I have a lot to get to, a lot to go through. I'm going to do my best. You can do the rest. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Feel free to disagree with me as always. Yeah. I've been meaning to record some shows. Hasn't happened much as of late, not for a lack of trying. Life happens. So yeah, I'm going to give it another go right now. I meant to record a show last night talking about some of this. Didn't happen. I'm trying again, and because it's a developing story, there's so much more to talk about. So I'm going to try to keep this as up-to-date as possible, cover as much, as fairly and as squarely as possible. And I'm going to be focusing on Joe Kent. That's where I left off just a couple of days ago or so. I was talking about how he was supposedly being investigated as a potential leaker in light of him suddenly resigning from his position as director of the National Counterterrorism Center. There is a lot more to talk about in regards to him. Also, in regards to Candace Owens and a potential connection there involving alleged leaks. TPUSA, of course, we'll get into all of that. And I'm going to start with this, in case you missed it. Something he posted on X earlier today, and then I'll contrast that to his resignation letter, or at least a portion of it, from a few days ago. Okay, so today, 12 hours ago, as of now, he said, President Trump is working to get peace with Iran. If he can make this happen, it will be a very good thing for our nation and our allies in the Gulf. The Israelis will be against this, but POTUS is strong and can get them on board. Okay, so what I want to highlight here, first and foremost, is him saying that POTUS, the POTUS, Donald Trump, is strong. Keyword there, strong. So let me backtrack a bit. Going back to his resignation letter, which he has pinned at the top of his X account, he said, in part of this statement, early in this administration, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform and sowed pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. This echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States, and that, should you strike now, there was a clear path to a swift victory. Oh, that's another interesting thing to highlight. So here in his resignation letter, he described Trump as being weak. He didn't say the word weak, but that's how he's describing him. He's describing him as being deceived by Israel, basically. Okay, so fast forwarding again to his more recent post in which he calls President Trump strong, it's also worth pointing out that he said President Trump is working to get peace with Iran. If he can make this happen, it will be a very good thing for our nation and our allies in the Gulf. So he seems to be saying here that there is a possibility that this war, which, according to him, as a few years ago, has been going on for years and years and years and years, though now he maintains that there's not even an imminent threat because I guess we're not at war with Iran, according to him now. He's now suggesting that there is indeed such a swift potential end to this conflict that it's going to be a good thing for us and our allies in the Gulf. So I don't know exactly where his mindset is at this point. If his issue with Trump goes no deeper than this post here, why did he even resign? Oh, was it because he was removed from certain briefings, security briefings? Was it because he was under investigation? as a potential leaker, and he knew the hammer was about to come down on him. He knew he was about to get fired or something. I don't know. It just seems odd to me that he would forfeit his position, which he claims he's grateful to have had, while at the same time, getting pats on the back for giving it up. Nick Mata says, President Trump hates you. Yes, earlier in the day, President Trump had some things to say about Joe Kent as well. I'm not going to play that right now. I might play it in another show. I have an extensive thread put together that I want to get to and go through in a timely manner. But yes, Trump said, I call him up, give him a job at the White House. He's smart, and this is what he does to me. Being a nice guy doesn't pay off too much. That's just a part of Trump's statement, trashing Kent to a certain extent. I'm not a big fan of the I did you a favor, so you should be loyal to me mentality. I'm not a big fan of that, to be honest. But at the same time, I don't trust Joe Kent at all. And I'll get to some reasons why. But let me bring this back around, focus on Candace Owens a bit. So I have this thread here, and it starts with her. Candace Owens in a nutshell. I have a few self-contradictions of hers laid out. I'll get to those in a moment, but I've been meaning to record some shows on her because there's just so many interesting details, some dirtier than others, to report when it comes to her. And her husband even. I mean, I'm hearing that her husband had a DUI that turned into a lawsuit, that turned into a settlement a couple of years ago. Not a good look for her or him. But I want to dig into that a little bit more. Some legal documents here. There you see on the screen her taking a week off at the time from podcasting. This is in 2023. And this post is courtesy of Raven Grace. I need to dig into that some more. But something else that happened in the last few days. Candace Owens speaking at the Catholics for Catholics event, in which she confirmed that she hasn't yet been confirmed as a Catholic, which is troubling to some because they have been led to believe for the last couple of years that she was already a confirmed Catholic. And of course, she was baptized long ago, supposedly, and did so supposedly for nefarious reasons. Nefarious, if you ask me. Reasons that would suggest she converted. Wasn't confirmed, but converted to Catholicism simply to contrast herself to Jews. But that's neither here nor there. Here, you can see that Candace Owens was at this event with a walking boot and one of these broken footmobiles. I don't remember the name of it, so that's what I call it, broken footmobile. So, over her left shoulder, you'll see her husband. At least nothing to the contrary has been said. And if you zoom in, as this picture here reveals, he appears to have some sort of black eye. Nothing to see here, though, right? Should we do a series on Candace about this mystery and start asking questions? There are so many questions to ask about the question asker. This is another post from Nick Matau. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I can't remember. But shout out to him. One more thing I had pulled up. I'll just randomly reference this as well. This from Ayal Jacoby. 5 months ago, by the way, he says. And here's a screenshot. And here's a screenshot of an old Candace Owens post in which she said, "Yes, I will be naming names and providing evidence for my claims." Did she ever do that? No, not exactly. So, ironically, as she says down here at the bottom of the same post, you were lied to. Talk about a drip-drip campaign of a witch hunt, which never seems to end. how convenient for her that she gets to pretend to be a legitimate investigator for months and months, only to gloat about how she's not the one bringing forth criminal charges. So don't hold her feet to the fire on any of this. Yeah. Frustrating stuff. But back to the feature presentation here, the extensive thread I've put together, starting with Candace Owens and moving on back to Joe Kent. So, Candace Owens in a nutshell. Don't trust the feds, except the ones leaking information to me. Keep in mind, even if Joe Kent denies this, she has been claiming for months that she has leaks in the government. Whether him or someone else. Also, Candace Owens. Failing to tell the full story is lying by omission. Unless I'm gloating about my anonymous sources in the government or whatever else I selectively choose not to reveal to you. Like I said, self-contradictions. Not keeping that same energy at all. Also, Candace Owens. Joe Kent is an American hero for his military service, but anyone currently serving in the military who doesn't choose to desert is essentially a traitor who's fighting and dying for Israel. Also, Candace Owens. Mitch Snow is vetted and totally reliable, at least until he is no longer serving my purpose. And I really couldn't care less about his background, as opposed to how much I care about the background of anyone I wish to spitefully smear. I say, somebody woke up on the wrong side of life and forgot to keep that same energy. So here I was reposting a post from Kane Koa, their great. Again, I'm not sure if that's how I pronounce his account name, but a great account to follow. A great investigative journalist, or at least much more of an investigative journalist than Candace Owens, who has a team of people behind her digging for the most effective conspiracy spin-offs. And they still can't get their facts straight. Oh, wait. Why would they get their facts straight when they're putting together a work of fiction? So he says, Kane Koa, the great, that is, somebody in government leaked Candace Owens a Thomas Crooks dossier in September. Those are some reports right there. I think that's worth a deep dive of its own, but moving on. Somebody in government leaked Candace info about Charlie's rental car being auctioned in December. Candace said the counterterrorism agency confirmed it had received her text messages about French assassins in December. We haven't heard much about that from her since either. Seems like the sort of thing you would want to talk about a little bit more. If not to the public, well, to the authorities. She said that she sent it to someone in the counterterrorism agency. She confirmed receipt or something like that. Also, she said she texted it to someone in the FBI, or texted someone in the FBI that she was under threat of assassination plot by the Macrons. Who believed that, right? They are, however, engaged in an active lawsuit against her, and when the hammer drops on that, she might lose a lot. I think she definitely deserves to, if you ask me. Continuing on here, Mitch Snow claimed Joe Kent, the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, vetted him for Candace's Fort Huachuca show in December, which also blew up in her face. And therefore she dropped Mitch Snow as a reliable source and proceeded with more plot twists. Worth noting that his funding campaign, which she set up for him supposedly, is still online. And I checked a couple of days ago, and guess what? A couple of days ago, someone was still sending him money. So he has raised, $150,000 on that? Her name is attached to it. Supposedly the money was going to him. We don't even know if that's true. We don't know who the money's going to or what's happening to it. But these are all things worth taking into consideration. There are some screenshots attached here. Yeah. Basically, the examples I just read off are all highlighted in these screenshots. The alleged leak of the digital footprint of Thomas Crooks. Candace saying that good guys in government worked to get her photos, which she then released, having to do with that car, the rental car. What else? Of course, Candace saying, with everything I've plotted onto a timeline and with, she says, I think that's a typo, my source on the inside. It seems the feds are lying about the outfit switch, which never made sense to begin with. Hence the laughably fake messages. There are at least 2 people involved, in my view. Here she was reposting a post by Jackson Hinkle, of course, saying Candace Owens does not believe the person in the maroon shirt walking on the morning of the Charlie Kirk assassination is Tyler Robinson. Regardless of any of this, any evidence you could possibly hope for is going to be presented in the case against Tyler Robinson. Many levels of circumstantial evidence, some direct evidence, even. I suppose it depends on how you want to categorize all of the evidence, because there's literally DNA evidence. He had customized bullets with engravings on them. He confessed to multiple people in multiple formats, from messages online to various people, to the letter he left his roommate/lover, to the back and forth communications between those two immediately after he assassinated Charlie Kirk, allegedly, to the fact that his own parents worked with a family friend to turn him in and have said nothing to suggest that he's actually innocent in the days since. I mean, the list goes on and on and on as to why this is such a strong case, but people are still going to believe a kook like Candace Owens, who said, as an update, both the White House and our counterterrorism agencies have confirmed receipt, there's that term I mentioned earlier, of what I reported publicly. Emmanuel Macron attempted to organize my assassination, per a source close to the first couple. Who was that source? Was that also Joe Kent? Didn't realize he was close to the first couple. Who knows who she's talking about there? Maybe her imaginary friend. I don't really know. But she says, also, I will again state that the French Foreign Legionnaires were involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination, but they did not act alone. Well, of course. Because Israel, IDF, Mossad, whoever, they were involved. Erica Kirk, everyone in leadership over at TPUSA, they were involved. Egyptian planes, Egyptian military planes to be exact, they were involved. Some B cult was involved. Random dudes in maroon shirts at the University of Utah, they were involved. The University of Utah itself was involved because they approved Charlie's speaking event there in record time. Not really true, but that's what she said. So they were involved. Who else was involved? Charlie's head of security, military officials at Fort Huachuca, and pretty much anyone else under the sun, especially the Jews. Yeah. All that in a bag of chips. So, how can we keep up with the never-ending litany of allegations, accusations, implications, suggestions, you name it? She's saying it. What else do I have here? Okay, that's further on down the thread. I will get to that. Back to my thread here, and I do have a lot remaining, so I need to try to speed this up a little bit. Within the comment section of Kane Koa's post, Kane Koa the Great was interacting with someone. Let me go ahead and pull up the relevant comments in this thread. So someone by the name of Heather Mullen said, I'm more concerned with the government officials trying to cover up information related to Trump and Charlie's assassins than I am whoever is leaking info proving there's a cover-up. Okay, don't want to get hung up on that, but Kanko the Great asks what information. Joe Kent should spit it out. Which kind of highlights another irony in all of this. This guy who was supposedly on the inside, I mean, he was on the inside, not just supposedly, he was literally on the inside. And he leaves, he resigns, does the whole interview tour, yet he has nothing to offer. He just sounds like another podcaster who's speculating and saying things like, no, there was no imminent threat coming from Iran. They weren't actually working on nuclear weapons because they told me so. They didn't even have a desire to build nuclear weapons or launch them around the world, wherever, because they told me so. This is essentially what he was saying. And then he acknowledges that they are still working on their nuclear program, which seems to suggest that everything else he said is not actually true. Yeah, and over the weekend, of course, Iran reportedly fired some longer-range missiles than they had led us to believe that they even had their hands on, so that's also worth taking into consideration. But again, my point is that this guy, who for years, up until a couple of years ago, was actually scolding people for not being pro-Israel enough. He was calling for strikes many times over the years on military operations in Iran. Now suddenly he's cold turkey on all of that. Though not really, since he's suggesting that what Trump is doing now could actually be beneficial, despite resigning because of how it was the opposite. Yeah, like I said, I'm just very confused by him, trying to figure him out. But the people who are trying to use him as this big revelation, they're whistleblower of sorts. You know, they're bringing him onto their podcast, and he doesn't have anything to reveal because, well, it appears that he was being kept out of top secret briefings, especially in regards to what's going on in Iran. So yeah, he's just speculating. So am I, by the way. But I'm a nobody, so there's that. He's a somebody. Okay, so my response to... Okay, so I reposted this question from Kanko the Great. And I said, either Joe Kent knows something the public doesn't know, and he's choosing not to reveal it, aka lying by omission, as Candace Owens would selectively say, or he doesn't actually know anything the public doesn't already know, and is therefore merely speculating like any other podcaster he's running to for special treatment. I will say props to him for going on with Mark Levin. Not everybody would do that. Not everybody in his position would do that. Okay, this is about Rabbi Pisak Waliki. And again, I could be botching that name entirely, but here's something that Nathan Livingstone, aka Milk Bar TV, posted. I don't need to read his caption. I'll just play this clip. And this is where things really blew up over the weekend when it comes to Andrew Colvett. Okay, here you go.
That the way that those screenshots got to Candace is via Joe Kent. You see, this has never been made public before, Aaron. Right now on your show, this is I'm saying this. So wait, let me explain. Andrew Colvett, who's was Charlie's number 2 guy, who now hosts the show. Andrew was in the chat group as well. He was one of the 9 people in the group, and he admitted at first. Be perfectly honest, at first he was denying it. We didn't know how Candace got them, but then he admitted on the air on his show that he had given these text messages, and he gave them to, he said that on the show that he gave them to someone in the government. He told us that he gave them to someone in the government, and of course the response of the people in the chat group was, you don't have a right to do that. This is a private chat group. There was no warrant. It doesn't work that way. But nevertheless, he did it. So we didn't know how it got to her. And then we started putting pieces together. Because Joe Kent was someone that we knew that there was a relationship there between Charlie and Andrew and Joe. We knew that when Charlie would visit Washington, D.C., he would talk to Joe. And we kind of put 2 and 2 together, and eventually, I'll leave out some of the details that I shouldn't say. We kind of verified that the messages had been given by Andrew to Joe Kent, and that Joe Kent had been the one to pass them on to Candace.
Okay. To be fair, the qualifier kind of verified stood out to me a little bit. I don't know much about this guy, this rabbi. He was a member of Charlie Kirk's private chat, which has been at the center of all of this. Executive director of Israel 365. So that's who this guy is. He was on with Aaron Molin here being interviewed. Did I link that interview in its entirety in my post? Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Let's see. No, I did not, but it's on YouTube if you want to check it out. So I'll just read my caption here in response to it. Rabbi Pisak Walicki, if I'm saying that right, says it's verified, kind of, sort of, that Andrew Colvett shared screenshots with then director of the National Counterterrorism Center, Joe Kent, who then leaked them to Candace Owens, inevitably helping her push her conspiracy theories on her podcast, which could presumably explain why he was removed from the briefings on security, Iran, etc., put under investigation, resigned before he could be fired, or worse, and immediately went on a media tour, starting with Tucker Carlson, so the usual podcast suspects could provide narrative control for him. Except for Mark Levin, of course. I did have my questions when immediately, emphasizing that word immediately, after he resigned, after his letter was published, he was turning around and hanging out with Tucker Carlson. Like, literally hanging out with Tucker Carlson for 24 hours. Apparently he stayed the night with him or something like that. 24 hours would include that. So they're just buddies. You know, you're Joe Kent. You're supposed to be the director of this counterterrorism center. There are reports on you leaking. You're being investigated. You resign before you can be fired, or maybe you weren't going to be because of the ongoing investigation, or because somebody there liked you, Tulsi Gabbard, whoever. You promptly go onto the podcast of Trump's opposition, and you suggest that he's weak and his intel is all off on Iran because Iran has convinced you so. And you say that we're only engaging with Iran right now because Israel has manipulated Trump on account of how weak he is. And then you're turning around and posting about how actually there's a potential positive end to all of this because Donald Trump, President Trump, is actually strong. Yeah. Maybe this guy is having a midlife crisis. I feel like I am too sometimes, and I'm only 32, and I did not serve in the military. 11 combat missions. I did not lose a wife in combat either, so trying to give him benefits of the doubt when I can. But I just have a hard time trusting him on all of this for what it's worth. Moving on down this thread here, I say, what Lisa says here about Joe Kent makes the most sense to me in my humblest of opinions. So Lisa, an account worth following on X, she has been breaking down some of the claims that have been made about Erica Kirk. She said, so Andrew Colvett was never giving info to Candace like she made it sound. He was giving it to Joe Kent, making it very easy to identify who the mole was. TPUSA figured this out, notified the Trump administration, and they promptly removed Joe from all briefings with the president and prompted the investigation into Joe being the leaker. So TPUSA has been doing work behind the scenes. Let's go. I'm reminded of the first time Trump was asked about Kent's resignation right after he turned in his letter. I don't want to say he dismissed the question, but he basically just called Kent a nice guy who was weak on security. So he was calling Kent weak on security. He didn't seem to know too much about the whole situation, other than that he was a weakness on security. So I'm wondering if he was actually informed about all of these rumors and reports along the way about the potential leaking. And this was all just a question of a when more so than a question of if. So maybe the hammer was about to drop on Kent, and at the end of the day, Trump was the one swinging it. Well, nevertheless, I'll continue with the rest of this. Post from Natalie Denise. I think she was posting someone else. Yes, indeed. Okay. This is another element of the controversy surrounding Kent. Mitch Snow. Yeah. So, as Shady Lady Katie points out in her caption here, he is someone who is not exactly reliable. He's someone who said that he was the son of the Zodiac Killer, for one. So Shady Lady Katie says in her caption here, I'm unsure why this isn't getting any traction, because to me it validates my suspicions even more that Joe Kent was/is Candace's leaker. Mitch Snow just said that it was Joe who vetted him. Crap job, by the way. Prior to Candace's interview. What a mess. So I'm going to go ahead and play this for what it's worth, and I don't think it's worth much, to be perfectly honest with you, because we've already established how unreliable he is as a source. Maybe he just wants his name back in the spotlight again, so he's going on an interview and tying himself to Joe Kent, who is getting all the big interviews right now, unlike Mitch Snow. This interview is also on YouTube. Another one you can find. It's over an hour long, I believe.
I know Candace said you were vetted. Who vetted you?
Oh, jeez. Yeah. I let that slip once, and maybe I wasn't supposed to, but yeah, it was Joe Kent.
Let me just pause it for a moment to point out that he said he had previously let it slip when he wasn't supposed to. I don't know what he's referring to there. I don't know if there's another interview somewhere out there where he first said that it was Joe Kent who vetted him. But here it's almost like he's setting himself up to say Joe Kent's name, pretending that he might as well say it since he already said it. But we don't know if he had already actually said it somewhere else to someone else. Just something that came to my mind.
She trusted him. We had, what was it, about the 12th of December, babe? About the 10th or 12th. It would have been the 10th. About the 10th of December. Strangely enough, my birthday. Yeah, we had a 15-minute conversation, and then all he had to do was see records. And yeah, I gave him all the records. I gave him so many records, he said, stop, you're done, you're good.
Okay, the way he says this, the way he lays this story out, makes it harder for me to believe. He says, I gave him so many records, he said, stop, you're good, man. You're good. Like, if Joe Kent did the vetting, he has certain clearances, being in the Counterterrorism Center. I don't know what all resources he would have utilized to check this guy's background. This guy was interviewed by somebody by the name of Gary Paramount Tactical. Highly recommend his YouTube show. Yeah, that's a whole mess of its own. But Gary did a certain degree of vetting of him just to make sure he was who he says he is. But whether he is or not, this guy is like a con artist, pathological liar, whatever description you want to slap on it, that's what he is. So that's why I say don't take this for much, because this guy is so unreliable as a source that even Candace Owens dropped him.
Stop, you're done, you're good. You check out, brother. You're go with this station, move forward. Good luck on Candace.
And he'd be able to tell. He'd be able to recognize in a heartbeat if you weren't who you said you were.
Correct. So you have these... Well, dear. Okay. You have these self-proclaimed internet military guys that seemingly own everything military on the internet, who want to dictate and yell at women and tell them they're going to go scorched earth on them, that claim that they are the end-all to vetting people. They ain't got no connection to no records.
Not sure who he's talking about there, but he knows all about yelling at women. Kind of has a history of being a bit abusive himself.
They're not allowed to. They're just like you and me. So, yeah, Joe Kent. Yeah, he can take the records, go look it up, dial stuff in. He knows more about my records than I do. He has access
Right.
to it
He
straight
has
on.
access. Yeah.
Who the hell are these yahoos trying to tell us, oh, you got to go through them? No, we don't. You don't own the internet. Have a nice day.
So, in the process of the in vetting that Joe Kent did to you, did he share any secrets with you?
No,
Did you guys conspire?
no, no.
Was that your first time talking to him?
Yeah, it's the
When
only
he was.
time talking to him. If anything, he seemed he's a bit tired. Uh, that guy gets up early. Apparently, he gets up like at 2 o'clock in the morning to go work out and whatnot. So no, it was rather he wanted to just get it done and over with. He was doing other things. Check things out. Gave a thumbs up. Have a nice day, Joe.
And Candace trusts him. Tucker trusts him. Megan trusts him.
Seems like a lot of white hats that are in the know trust him.
They trust.
That sounds like 3 minutes of a very unreliable source with no credibility rambling on there. For all I know, this guy is butthurt after Candace Owens dropped him as her source, and now he's trying to get back at the spotlight, that is. Either way, however you want to look at it, don't want to spend too much time on him. Already wasted enough time on him. I'll just throw this detail in. I mentioned Gary from Paramount Tactical interviewing him. I think it was more of a phone conversation, which was recorded on one end but not the other, illegitimately so because of two-party consent states. And that's why I said it was a whole mess. And Candace Owens was involved with all of that. But of course, anything she's involved with turns out to be a mess. So Natalie Denise reposted Shady Lady Katie, and Natalie Denise says Candace's guest, Mitch Snow, and yes, she had him on her show after supposedly vetting him. And yes, he made the wild claim that he had seen Erica Kirk at a military base called Fort Huachuca. And then Natalie Denise just repeats that he accidentally revealed that Joe Kent vetted him for her show. Candace raised over $150K for this man. I believe it was right at $150K. So I don't know if it was over. Last time I looked, it was just under. I could be wrong. If Joe Kent did this, imagine decaying your mind so bad that you feed the corrosive grift of a D-list level acting podcaster making bank off of a ventriculized corpse of a martyr, willing to hit Control-Alt-Delete on your credibility, legacy, and career because you wanted your griftmaster Senpei to look your way. Pathetic. Spicy posts from Natalie Denise. Shout out to her. Okay, I'm back on track with my thread here. Just throwing Megyn Kelly into the thread here as a dishonorable mention since she so badly wants to be a part of the disinformation campaign. I just reposted something from Bryn here who said, "This is unbelievable. Megyn Kelly knows Tyler Robinson was responsible. She knows there's no credible link to Israel or Iran. And she knows Candace has been using these conspiracy theories to go after Erica Kirk. But instead of shutting it down, Megyn gives airtime to Joe Kent's vague foreign links claims. Claims she knows don't hold up. At least that's what she was previously saying. She was saying that this stuff doesn't hold water. And now, because she has picked her side, and it's clearly the wrong one, she has to platform propaganda. Or in this case, just leave the door open on it. So Bryn was saying she claims these things don't hold up, but then she peddles them anyway, which conveniently fuels Candace's attacks on Erica. So no, she's not attacking Erica directly, but she's certainly helping build the narrative that does. Megyn Kelly, that is. And here, Megyn Kelly had posted this link referring to Joe Kent's belief that there's much more to investigate related to Charlie Kirk's assassination. And she quotes him here, "All I can say is that there were additional leads that we needed to run down and fully investigate, and that just simply was not done from the time that Tyler Robinson turned himself in and was arrested, and his fingerprints were found on the rifle." So, dude, you don't know anything that the people over at TPUSA don't know. They're the ones who sent you the sort of stuff that you're now using to justify looking at Israel or wherever else. And yet, they themselves over at TPUSA believe fully that Tyler Robinson was the shooter. So I just think that some people, Joe Kent included, are more so buying into propaganda and narratives online from the people they're surrounding themselves with than actually investing in some kind of investigation. Certainly not a sincere effort, since they're running back to people like Candace Owens, who, guess what, never even visited the crime scene, but supposedly know all about it. Okay, what else do we have here? Note on Candace Owens. Candace Owens, in her CNN interview shortly after Charlie Kirk's assassination, said, "I have leaks." So yeah, she has been claiming to have leaks for a long time. This is a 2-minute long clip. I'll try not to add too much of my own commentary. I may have talked about this in the past, but Ella Reeve of CNN, a correspondent over there, interviewed her, I believe, a couple of weeks after Charlie Kirk's assassination, though Candace Owens lied about the time frame on that. Interviewed her.
When you say you believe that Charlie Kirk was betrayed by someone close to him, what do you mean?
I think that in the coming weeks, there's going to be a lot of financial reports that are coming out.
False.
And I, first and foremost, do not believe that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk.
Congratulations.
I want to be very clear on that. Whether he was involved, I think the answer is yes.
So involved, meaning he was a lead. The only lead. And a gigantic lead at that, so much so that all the evidence points to him. Thus, he is the suspect. Thus, he is in prison. Thus, he is going to be convicted inevitably as a murderer. The murderer that he is, despite your pitiful efforts to sabotage the trial. And I certainly hope that she does not taint the jury pool. I certainly hope that people are not stupid enough to take her ideas into the court, genuinely believing them or with more nefarious purposes. I hope that justice is served. And then I hope that Candace Owens is hit with the sort of lawsuits that she deserves to get hit with. But I just think that it's amusing how she initially said, "Oh yes, I think Tyler Robinson was at least involved." But then she spent the next 6 months not talking about such a big lead, like, at all. Because he got in the way of all the narratives that she wanted to control. Spin and control.
Yes, I think that's obvious.
And your basis for saying he didn't act alone is what?
I don't know, maybe the weird Fed messages that were concocted out of thin air that had no timestamp and were written like they were speaking in 1822.
Okay, so weirdness is what determines your conclusions in your investigations. Investigative journalism these days.
Among other things, their lack of an ability to answer any basic questions about what took place.
But do you have any proof that the messages were made up? Because that would be easily proven.
Yeah, but they didn't put timestamps on them, and Discord came out and said they didn't exist.
This was supposedly text messages, not Discord messages.
Funny how she's like, they can't even answer basic questions. And then she immediately completely botches a basic question because she hasn't even read the indictment to know that these were text messages, not Discord messages, which she's referring to as Fed messages.
It's my understanding from the indictment.
I actually did not read that they were text messages.
By the way, those Fed messages are a lot more convincing than a lot of the stuff that she has released on her own podcast.
Indictment calls them text messages.
What would it be like the feds are like on a computer, like typing it out back and
That's
forth?
exactly what it is. The feds made up the text messages.
But you don't have anyone from like the FBI telling you that, or law
I have
enforcement?
leaks.
Okay.
No.
Has anyone leaked to you?
And
that?
Tyler Robinson
But has anyone said to you, even off the record, like, yeah, we faked these?
I have very strong sources everywhere on both sides.
Very strong sources on both sides everywhere. Okay, that's very vague. Talk about not answering basic questions. Let me back this up a little bit.
The indictment calls them text messages.
What would it be like the feds are like on a computer, like typing it out back and
That's
forth?
exactly what it is. The feds made up the text messages.
But you don't have anyone from like the FBI telling you that, or law
I have
enforcement?
leaks.
So the question is about the feds, the FBI, and she says, I have leaks. Whether this soon after Charlie Kirk's assassination, she was already talking to Joe Kent, I don't know. I don't remember the timeline of exactly when she revealed those screenshots of the group chat on her show. I don't know when exactly that would have meant Andrew Colvett sent them to Joe Kent. But regardless of all the above, Candace Owens claims to have leaks, which is bragging rights to her, but at the same time, by her own logic of lies by omission, she knows things that she's refusing to tell her audience, so she's lying by omission. At best.
Okay.
No.
Has anyone leaked to you?
And
that?
Tyler Robinson
But has anyone said to you, even off the record, like, yeah,
What was that? Some weird body language. Talking about weird.
we faked these?
I have very strong sources everywhere on both sides.
Well, I look forward to seeing the evidence of
Yeah,
that.
sure. Because when we keep talking about evidence, it's like, who's going to present that evidence? Like the mainstream media? Like who are you expecting to come
Yes, that would be a
out?
hot story.
No, it wouldn't be.
It would be.
It wouldn't be.
If the FBI, like if I had a source telling me, like if I had proof that the FBI faked those messages, that would be an enormous story.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we live in a post-Epstein world and we know how stories get shut down. And
So let me get this straight. Candace is like, I know the truth because I have inside sources. And the interviewer, what's her name again? Ella Reeve, asks her, don't you think that would be a big story if you revealed what your sources are saying? Candace Owens responds, nah, mainstream media, they don't care about this sort of thing. They're not going to cover it, at least not accurately. They're not going to tell the truth. So wait, Candace Owens's excuse for not telling the truth is that if she does, the mainstream media is not going to then tell the truth. This woman, my goodness. If you listen to any segment of her talking in any setting for a matter of minutes, and you really pay attention and you really ask questions, question the questioner, you'll come away thinking that she is either entirely incompetent or quite a sinister force in society. Maybe something in between those two extremes. Maybe all the above. Carrying on here, former U.S. National Counterterrorism Center director remarks at Catholic prayer gala. So I linked a C-SPAN page here with a video of his 5-minute long speech. I believe it was a 5-minute long speech. I'm not going to pull it up. I just took away from it one particular thing. He basically said in his speech that in the counterterrorism center, he was right where God wanted him to be. In which case, why did he resign with no real revelations to reveal? Yeah. He said, God showed me that I was right where I needed to be. And then I resigned. Figure that one out. Square that circle. Okay. Here's the thing. When Candace Owens talks about trust, she merely means she only trusts those who will help her further her narrative, even by leaking information, which isn't exactly a trustworthy thing to do, depending on who you ask, I suppose. I'm not saying whistleblowers are never good people. That would be a ridiculous thing to say. I'm just saying, for as much as Candace talks about transparency, she sure refrains from revealing a whole lot. She has two things that she does. I am exposing this, and I cannot reveal that. Something that she posted back in October, she said, this article is literally about how Kash Patel is upset that Joe Kent and Tulsi Gabbard are trying to do their jobs and solve the Charlie Kirk murder case. It's like Kash Patel wants to be the sole point person on this. Why? I do not trust him at all. Well, for one, the FBI is the investigating body here, not the counterterrorism center. So it's not really up to Joe Kent what Kash Patel does as the point person on this. Here's this article, this screenshot of this article from the New York Times. Officials' access to FBI files in Charlie Kirk case drew pushback. So, an inquiry by Joe Kent, who leads the National Counterterrorism Center, is said to have alarmed Kash Patel, the FBI director. And by the way, I'm not a big fan of Kash Patel, I must say. But I'm even less of a fan of Joe Kent at this point. I just couldn't help but to scroll down a little bit. The first comment I see is from Viva Fry. He says, I would be very skeptical about the article. It's based on anonymous sources and designed to make it look like there is turmoil in the Trump administration. If he has a problem with anonymous sources, I wonder if he has a problem with Mitch Snow. Viva Fry, I don't dislike the guy, but he tries too hard to side with Candace Owens, even though he's kind of questioning her source, or the source she's screenshotting. I saw where earlier today he said, people are accusing Joe Kent of leaking to Candace Owens. Maybe I should be the one to ask both her and him straight up, did he leak to you? Were you leaked to by him? However you want to phrase it. I responded to his post in which he tagged both of them. I can't remember exactly what I said. That just came to mind because I was reading a comment from him. From several months ago. October. Okay, so on down the rabbit hole we go. Candace Owens likes to start with the question of what is so-and-so hiding, which is essentially a predetermined implication that something is indeed being hidden. Thus, she establishes the narrative first, then twists the truth to fit it. And so I reposted this clip, which was posted by Nathan Livingstone, again, aka Milk Bar TV. Let me go ahead and play this. And this is in regards to the previous post on Up the Thread about Kash Patel, yada, yada, yada.
Trending yesterday, right? This is the headline that came out of the Daily Mail. Kash Patel shuts down Charlie Kirk foreign intelligence probe in an explosive feud with Trump's counter-terror chief.
So similar to the New York Times headline.
It really makes you wonder what Kash Patel is hiding. There's absolutely no reason for Kash Patel to say, only I'm the person that's supposed to be looking into this. It makes no sense. If he is interested in solving Charlie Kirk's murder, then Kash Patel would be working with everyone. Everyone across all departments. Trending yesterday.
Okay, enough of that. She's saying if, ands, and buts. Not that she's privy to the inside scoops, or is she? Or was she? She's saying, if this person cared, if that person cared, they would spare no means necessary. They would let anyone in. even potential leakers in on the investigation. Listen, I don't really trust any of these people. Certainly not Candace Owens, though. Here, Candace Owens asks how Joe Kent could have leaked to her rather than simply saying he didn't. So this is a post of hers from yesterday, and then we're going to promptly move into today's news on this. I add, this is speculative, but I could see a world where Colvette sent something to Kent, then Kent turned around and sent it to Candace, and because what was sent wasn't part of the official investigation, she's suggesting nothing was leaked from it. However, even if that's technically true, it wouldn't justify her receiving or redirecting info about Charlie Kirk in an attempt to smear those closest to him. And I'm just speculating here, of course. Either way, she'd be lying by omission according to her own standard of transparency. Also, her suggestion that it's impossible to attack Erica unless she's guilty is mind-numbingly dumb. So, here's this post from her. She posted this yesterday in response to Laura Loomer, who was responding to Jack Posobiec. And you know what? I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole right now. So I'll just read Candace Owens' post. Are you slow? If Cash blocked him from the investigation, how the heck could he have leaked me any information from it? So in other words, she's asking what you might think is a legitimate question. She's asking, if this guy was blocked from the investigation, how could he have leaked me any information from it? Okay, so in your defense of him, thanks for suggesting that he doesn't actually know anything. So you're going to downplay the level of information the guy has that you're relying on for information. She goes on, also, how could leaking things about the investigation be an attack on his wife unless she was behind it? Explain that. Okay, here's the explanation. You seem to be suggesting that it's impossible to attack anyone who's innocent, which is almost as idiotic as you not knowing that thunder was the result of lightning for so many years. True story. As she didn't know that lightning produced thunder until relatively recently. But we're supposed to pretend that this woman is a genius. Yeah, ridiculous question. How could leaking things about the investigation be an attack on his wife unless she was behind it? So you can't attack Erica Kirk unless she is guilty of assassinating her husband or having him assassinated. Whatever the claim even is at this point, I don't know. Because again, these people don't actually have to put forward any criminal charges or an indictment. They just get to wildly speculate for months on end while raking in the dough for it. In her case, very wealthy woman. Okay, Andrew Colvette gives a reality check. This is actually not from today, but it's a relevant thing for him to have said.
Here, because I'm privy to certain details that I'm not allowed to speak about publicly, and I want the audience to know every single question that has been floated in any way, shape, or form, we have chased down and we have done our best to. So my point is, he's saying we're not allowed to ask questions. Well, just because you're not presented with the evidence doesn't mean, or given access to that part of the investigation, doesn't mean that the questions haven't been asked and that the lines of inquiry haven't been followed. You know, that does not mean things have not been investigated, because I know a tremendous amount of things have been investigated. And by people that love Charlie, people that cared about Charlie. So and here's the last thing, you know, and I constantly go back to this Turley quote in my head where he says, if 90% of the evidence against Tyler Robinson was thrown out, this guy would still get the death penalty. If the defense somehow succeeded in throwing 90% of this evidence out, he'd still be found guilty in a court of law. I'm
guessing he's referring to Jonathan Turley there. I don't want to spend too much time on that because that's kind of old news as of now, but an update from today, this courtesy of Britta, known as No Soup for Knowles on X. Andrew Colvett says he doesn't know if Joe Kent personally leaked the screenshot to Candace, but he says Joe was encouraging him to post it publicly shortly before Candace leaked it. Because this is more than 5 minutes long, I'm hesitant to play this clip. I add some thoughts of my own, so I might just read those. New from Andrew Colvett. He confirms he gave the Charlie Kirk group chat screenshots to Joe Kent. He says he can't say for certain whether it was Kent who personally leaked the screenshots to Candace Owens. So fact check. Mostly verified. Either way, Joe looks bad and is lying by omission, as is Candace herself. In other words, either Joe Kent leaked them, sent them, whatever he wants to call it, to Candace Owens himself, or he passed them off to someone else who did. And he's not saying their names. So, again, according to Candace Owens' standard of scrutiny and transparency, he's lying by omission. A question I have, when Andrew says he was told that TPUSA could trust Joe, who told him that? Who told them that? Do I want to play this or do I not? I'm running very lengthy on this show. My apologies.
And whatnot. The central claim, though, that I want to get to is, was Joe Kent leaking certain information?
Okay. I'm not going to play it. I broke it down for the most part. But yes, he said in this clip that he was told that Joe Kent was reliable. It was known that Kent and Kirk, Charlie Kirk that is, were friends, or at least friendly. So maybe Charlie Kirk had told Andrew Colvett once upon a time that Joe Kent was reliable. Maybe someone else. I don't know. But either way, some people have been browbeating Andrew Colvett for this. But especially when it comes from the Candace cult, it's ironic because these people knock Andrew and everyone over at TPUSA for supposedly not caring enough to ask questions. But then when they ask questions to people in the federal government who you would think could help answer those questions, TPUSA is then raked over the coals for it. Andrew specifically. I think he was just trying to cover his bases, and I don't think Erica Kirk has much of an issue. For all I know, she told him to reach out. I mean, she hasn't fired him or anything like that, so we'll see what happens from all of this. I just think that Andrew Colvett has been in a difficult position, and he did the very thing that people would be complaining if he didn't do. And potentially discovered a leaker in the process. But those leaking allegations are being denied by both Candace Owens, sort of, and Joe Kent, as we will see momentarily. Okay, do I want to read this? Yeah, I'll go ahead and read this. A.G. Hamilton says, my personal take, I think Andrew had an error in judgment, but I also think it's understandable. His close friend just died. He wanted to make sure investigators had all relevant info. Kent is someone in government he thought he could trust. Right thing would have been to just check with Erica and share anything relevant with the actual FBI investigators. NCTC does not investigate. That's the National Counterterrorism Center. Little did he know that Joe Kent would coordinate with a few demonic figures to exploit the murder and related info to push their own agenda while also undermining the case against Kirk's killer, which is exactly what he appears to have done. Seems rather obvious now that trusting Kent was a mistake, but hindsight is 20/20. 2020. Unless someone else, whether in the federal government or not, whom Andrew Colvett may have passed this set of screenshots along to, could have revealed them to Candace Owens. I suppose that's possible, but that hasn't been spoken to. And Joe Kent is the one who is being investigated as a potential leaker right now, so that's why everyone's focused on him. Of course, he brought that on himself when he resigned in such a dramatic fashion. More from me on this. More relevant thoughts on this, but again, I think any potential blame for Andrew Colvett hinges in part on who told him to trust Joe Kent. I just think that's a question worth asking. Andrew was covering bases that TPUSA gets criticized if they don't cover. I mean, if there was even remotely a chance that the actual investigating federal agency wasn't doing its due diligence on Charlie Kirk's assassination, i.e. the FBI, then the next best place to raise a question or concern might very well be the non-investigating agency where a relationship already exists, especially if terrorism might be a relevant field of expertise. You know, since various countries are being lumped into the conspiracy theories. Also, do we know for certain that Erica Kirk wasn't aware Andrew was reaching out to Joe? Or again, maybe even instructed him to do so? I don't know. And I won't pretend I do know. Okay. We are nearing the end here. I have a couple of clips I want to play. Brief breakdowns. But Candace Owens addressed this on her show. She spoke to what she was speaking to in that post of hers where she suggested that it's impossible to attack someone who isn't guilty. But yeah, Candace Owens with one of the least convincing, almost denials I've ever heard. And this is another clip courtesy of Nathan Livingstone, who said, breaking, Candace Owens addresses accusations that Joe Kent leaked information to her and notably stops short of denying it. He quotes her, but I'll play the clip, so no need to read her quote. So it leaves open the possibility that Kent did share information with Owens, just not with the stated intent of targeting Erica Kirk. Okay. This'll explain it.
There is now speculation that Joe Kent may have been leaking information to Candace Owens for the purpose of attacking Mrs. Erica Kirk. What are you doing? Okay, I can tell you right now that that is completely untrue. Joe Kent did not leak me anything for the purpose of attacking Erica Kirk.
Oh, so that last part. Yikes. Joe Kent did not leak me anything for the purpose of attacking Erica Kirk. Well, at that time, when it was leaked to you, you were still pretending that you weren't actually attacking Erica Kirk. It was only later when you directed your attack directly at her. So, duh. But it seems like a very carefully chosen framing of the explanation here, or the almost denial. Let me play that last part one more time.
True. Joe Kent did not leak me anything for the purpose of attacking Erica Kirk. There was...
What a train wreck. So it is interesting that her denial, almost denial, is slightly different than Joe Kent's, which at this point has become an outright denial. I'll show you that as well. But there's a clip from a couple of days ago where he was on with Megyn Kelly because, again, she wants to be a part of this whole grift, for lack of a more original description at the moment. But Allie J. Kiss posted this clip. Guys, she says, Megyn Kelly really delivered hard-hitting investigative questions in her Joe Kent interview. Megyn, did you leak? Joe, nope. Case closed. LOL, just kidding. Joe's cooked in Megyn's retorted. My apologies, YouTube. I don't know if they penalize people for saying that word, so I'm not going to say it.
Someone in government, and some online are speculating that well, we know it was leaked to Candace Owens, and she reported on it. And some are speculating that you were the leaker. So did you leak that document to Candace?
No.
Did you leak it all to the media?
No.
And have you?
No. And then she immediately transitions away from the question. It's like she talked with him about this ahead of time and knew he was going to say no, and then what she was going to ask next. That's what it seems like to me.
And have you watched as other government employees have leaked multiple documents and information with absolutely no threat of prosecution?
I have the same access to the media that you do, so I see it happening. I don't know specifics of anyone specifically leaking themselves, but yeah, the leaks are in the paper every single day. And I think there's a big distinction between leaking actual top secret information and then leaking almost palace intrigue of who's meeting with who. But yeah, no. So I'm not aware of any specific leakers, but again, I see it all the time in the media.
So yeah, long story short here, as I point out in my caption, Kent denies leaking. Kelly, clearly prepared for him to say no, immediately pulls a positive whataboutism to redirect him to talk about other unrelated reports of leaking. Kent then uses the other reported leaks to downplay his own non-leak. So, worth noting how much more enthusiastic he was to answer those follow-up questions, those weak sauce follow-up questions, than he was to delve deeper into the claims that he was indeed a leaker. And I don't know if he was or not. But if he wasn't, then he has some other questions which need to be answered. And he just hasn't answered them so far. Props to Joe Kent for talking to Mark Levin, since he actually asked challenging questions, unlike Megyn Kelly. And by the way, this interview just took place a few hours ago. I haven't listened to the whole thing, just some clips of it which have been making the rounds. I might break this down further in the near future. We'll see. But Kent denies leaking in any way and says the real leaks are reports about him being a leaker. Maybe true, but those weren't screenshots. So, not exactly the same kind of leak we're talking about here. Reports from official sources within the federal government after his resignation letter was published, suggesting that he's a leaker, aren't the exact same as documents being sent to Candace Owens, who then used said documents to try to smear Charlie Kirk's widow. A little bit different scenario. Okay, so let me just go ahead and play this clip. It's less than a minute long. It's just an audio clip.
Were you a leaker? Are you under investigation? Do you know whether you're under investigation? Let's try and clear the air right at the beginning.
Sure, Mark. Thanks for having me on. I never leaked any classified information. And the stories you're reading are stories from leakers who are leaking, I guess, maybe an investigation about me being a leaker. So I think it's just a media counter narrative. I had
so nobody has contacted you from Justice or the FBI or anything like that?
Nope.
Did you ever leak? Confident?
Nope,
Let me do it this way. Did you ever leak classified information? You said no. Did you ever leak confidential information?
Nope.
Okay, I'm glad the follow-up was asked in that way, rather than just under the premise of it being classified, because he may say, oh, it wasn't classified. Somebody, family friend sends me some screenshots. That's not necessarily in my official capacity as director of the National Counterterrorism Center. Maybe if I then turn around and send it to who I want to send it to, I'm not technically revealing anything classified. Maybe that's his rationalization there. Maybe that would be his rationalization there. So I'm glad the follow-up is, is it something confidential?
Never.
Will you cut out? Okay, you're on the record. That's perfectly fine. And that's a good thing, Joe.
But then again, what even is confidential? There we go. Just wanted to highlight that word, confidential. Okay, so that's the last part of this thread I have here. I didn't read quite all of my caption, so I'll finish that off now. I must say I'm having a hard time believing Kent, since there's far more evidence that he leaked than there is that Israel, Eric, or whoever else assassinated Charlie Kirk, that's for sure. I mean, maybe Kent shared the screenshots with someone else in the government, who then leaked said screenshots to Candace Owens, in which case, why would he be associating with her immediately after resigning? Also, what does he even rationalize as being a leak? And what exactly did he share with who, even if he believes it wasn't technically leaking? So, I guess why would he admit to doing it in this format? It's not like he's going to perjure himself specifically on the Mark Levin show, so it could be that he's lying. It will be interesting to see what else he says in days to come. What else Candace Owens says in days to come. And she could just be pulling strings as per usual. I mean, if the hammer was about to come down on her and she could redirect it towards someone else, she would do that. Let's not think that she wouldn't. The woman will smear and slander a widow as being complicit in the assassination of her own husband, so let's not think she won't overturn any stones possible to continue her grift. Overturn any stones possible to continue her grift. Okay, I have gone on for far too long, but I hope I was able to keep things interesting if you stuck around this long. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and enjoy the ride. As I may have already said, keep in touch, keep in tune. New content is coming soon. Peace. Also, my cat is in my lap now. He joined the program partway through.